In this video, we will start the actual conversion of the static HDStreetBand site into its dynamic data-driven counterpart. And we will start with the director page. So the director page is right here. It's an HTML file at that moment. And the first thing that I will do is right-click that file to rename it. And I will change the .html extension to .cfm. And by doing that, this becomes a Coldfusion page. It means that when that page will be requested, it will be processed by the Coldfusion server, just because it has that .cfm extension. Now let's take a look at that file. And here you see that I have a page body div that contains the title of the page, and then here the content of the page. So I will delete that, the title and the content. You see that the page body div is now completely empty. And what I want to do is to replace the content that I have just deleted by something that comes from the database. And it comes from the pages table of the database. So let's take a look at the pages table once again. So show table contents. And you see that the page for the band director is page number 1. The ID number of that page is number 1. So I want to retrieve data from that record in the database, the record, the page number 1, from the pages table of the HDStreet database. So I need to query the database to retrieve that data. And to do so, I go back to the top of the page here. Coldfusion has a tag, which is the cfquery tag. Very simple. So I open and close a cfquery tag. Now I need to provide two information to that cfquery tag. The first one is the data source that I want to query. And of course I need to choose one of the data sources that has been previously defined in the Coldfusion administrator. In this case I will use the HDStreet data source. Now the second thing I have to do is to tell a name, to specify a name for that cfquery. And this is going to be the name of a local variable that will contain the data retrieved from the database. So I will call this rs page. RS stands for record set. It's again a naming convention to remind me that this variable comes from a query. It's been generated by a query. It's a record set, the response from a query sent to the database. Inside the cfquery tag, I will need to write in a very specific language, and that language is SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. It's the language we use to query databases and to manipulate data in databases. So what I need to do here is to select data. I need to select something in the database. And from the pages table here, I need the title of the page, like that. And I also need the content of the page. And that comes from the page title field and the page content field. You see that I can drag and drop here from the RDS panel to the main panel. That avoids typos. Now I also have to tell SQL from what table I want to retrieve those two pieces of data. So I need a from clause, and I need to retrieve data from the pages table. So this is very simple to understand. I select the page title and the page content. Notice the comma here to separate the two fields from the pages table. Now if I stop here, I will retrieve all the data from the pages table. And this is not what I want, because I don't want all 6 pages. I just want page number 1, the page whose ID number is number 1. So let's add in the query what we called a where clause, where, and I will say where the page ID is equal to 1. So I limit my selection to only that page. I also need to check if the page is active. So I have a page is active field. Remember that field can have a value of 1 or a value of 0. With 1 the page is active, 0 the page is not active. So if the page is active, I will retrieve with that query the page title and the page content from the page whose ID is 1 inside of the pages table of my HDStreet database. Now to check if this works, let's go back to the page body tag, and at that location I will write a cfdump, and I want to dump the RS page record set. Let's take a look at that page. Let's run it in the browser. And you see that it works. The query has been dumped here in the main area of the page, and you see that I have retrieved the page content and the page title of page number 1. This is the SQL that has been sent to the database, and you see some other information such as the execution time in milliseconds of that query. You see it was very fast, 41 milliseconds. In the next video, we will take the data from that query to output that data on the page.